Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esther Lynn welcomes you to a brand new edition of Between the Links. Happy to have you here on this Thursday. Appreciate you all bearing with us with this later than usual start time. I hope you can bear with me a little bit. I'm a little under the weather. If I start coughing and my voice goes, don't frown upon me. Because good news, the UFC is back this week. We have some things to discuss from the UFC and beyond. So let's get into it. As we introduce the panel first, Mr. No Gray Area, Mr. Hot Take. Excited to have him here as always. He told me right before we hit record, he's never been more ready for an episode of BTL. He's from No Bets Barred, and damn, they were good. He's MMA Fighting Zone, Jed Meshew. Hi, Jed.
Hey, buddy. The Murphs get you down yesterday? Why are you sick?
I was sick
not yesterday, 2 days ago? Oh, well then, good for you for doing them anyway.
I did. 52 minutes and change. I was very happy with my time. I probably could have done better.
Not bad.
Not too shabby. We got through it. It was painful. But folks, his opponent, this man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways, because he's my best friend and the co-host of On to the Next One and the co-host of the brand new show that is sweeping the globe. It's called Tough Hang from MMAfighting.com, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. Hello, my best friend. That's still me.
Hi, my best friend. Hello, Kirby. Kirby is also here. So shout out to Kirby. I'm very excited. I'm so happy The Ultimate Fighter is back. My soul is full. And Mike, I just want to say, when you said this person requires no introduction, I almost wanted you to say this person requires no introduction and then just not say anything. And then Casey just switched to me. I've always wanted to do that. I almost did it. to GC on Tough Hang, the first episode of Tough Hang, which you all can watch on YouTube. Reaction to Tough 31 episode 1, a notorious return. But I was like, it's our first time really doing a show together. I don't want to mess with them like that. But one day I will do the requires no introduction and then just silence.
Mark this date and mark the moment when it happens in the future. So let us begin with the long-awaited return. Big news, everybody. It's what everybody wants to talk about in the MMA space. Yes, The Rock is back in the Fast and Furious franchise. Just kidding. I'm talking about the return of Tough. Yes, that's where we're going to start, because if we talked about The Rock, we would talk about an hour of Fast and Furious talk. You can go back into the archives of many of MMA fighting shows and get AK and Jed's thoughts on the newest installment of the series. But the first episode of season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter is officially in the books. A highly promoted, highly anticipated season featuring Conor McGregor, the biggest star in the history of the sport, and Michael Chandler as coaches. They are expected to fight hopefully later on at the end of the year. And Conor is coaching all of the prospects / up-and-comers, while Michael Chandler is coaching all of the UFC veterans. Weight classes are bantamweight and lightweight. And in the first fight of the season, it lasted all of 10 seconds. Roosevelt Roberts of Team Chandler stops Team McGregor's Nate Jennerman, and the vets are on the board. So, AK, you reacted right after on Tough Hang. The format, the coaches, the layout, first episode, knowing what you know, seeing what you saw. What would you grade the first episode of Tough 31?
I mean, I wish I could go higher than what I'm going to say. I'm giving it a solid B, which maybe might be higher than some expect, might be lower than some expect. I'll say though, the only problem with the B grade is that's the same rating I would give to Tough 30, season 30, episode 1, season 29, episode 1, season 28, episode 1, season 20. You get the idea. They did nothing different. And we talked to this about the reaction show. In some ways, that's a good thing, because this is their first time, I believe, on big time ESPN. Someone's airing prime. I don't want to say prime time because it's like 10 Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. I wish they could air it a bit earlier, but it is, whatever. It is live, 10 o'clock ESPN, and also on ESPN Plus. So if you're expecting a new audience, then you don't need to change things up too much. That it's a pretty professional, like, well laid out reality television show. The format, especially for the first episode, pretty straightforward. Let's see McGregor, let's see Chandler, let's see the fighters, let's draft them, let's learn about fighter A, let's learn about fighter B, and then we have the fight. So it's a solid formula. But for people who have been keeping up, or even just caught the occasional episode. Let's say you watch like 1 or 2 episodes a season, or only watch premieres. Let's say every season it's like you watch the premiere to see if it will grab you. You probably got 15 minutes into this and we're like, oh, it's the same. It's the same show. Literally, if you and our producer Casey, a lapsed fan, can attest to this. Let's say the last season you watched was season 24, and you didn't watch the last few years, and then you came back for this one. You'd be like, holy crap, did I just like watch the next episode of the last season I was watching? Because it's so much the same. And same isn't bad, but same is a little boring, especially when you've got Conor McGregor. You've got Michael Chandler, who's a personality in his own right. Listen, McGregor, the A side, B side, C side, no question. He's the whole deal. The whole reason is on ESPN. The whole reason that most people are excited about Ultimate Fighter being back at all. But Chandler can carry his end of the promotional bargain as well. So it's a little disappointing. We just didn't see a lot from the coaches other than a little interaction. The fighters, we learned again just about fighter A and fighter B. This is normally how it goes. We don't learn about the rest of the cast just yet. Some of them are familiar faces. There's this weird prospect versus vet dynamic they're trying to push, which is less than convincing. But I'll stick with B because, again, if you've seen the show before, you're probably fine with it. If you've never seen the show before, like GC Connor Burks, he would have given it an A. He loved it. He's never planned to watch a season beginning to end. This is his first time that he's going to watch a full season, and he thought it was great. So I think B is the right grade. I'm seeing in the comments some people saying C, and I don't blame them at all, especially if you've been following this show loyally.
Jed, not sure if you watched or you followed up on MMAfighting.com, as you would say, great website. Maybe you saw clips at the very least. Maybe you just watched the debut episode of Tough Hang, which is widely regarded. But your grade for episode 1, the fallout, the reaction, etc.
I'm going to peel back the curtain here for the lovely viewers and listeners to the pod later on. You send us the topics beforehand, gives us some time to prep, do a little research. And I was excited because when I got the topics, I was like, well, this first one, I'm just going to lose this category. That's a shame. And then I saw that AK was going to be my compadre in this. And so I can just say whatever AK said. He's got a great pod. I listened to their pod today, and that is the only thing I know about this show is what I learned from Tough Hang, because I don't give a shit about watching Tough. Never going to do it. I don't know, Mike, what you thought I was going to say. This is a television program with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. You know me. Why on God's green earth do you think I would care at all about watching that? It's not just a TV program with them. It's a Tough with them. Super couldn't care less about this. Wish all the people involved the best. Hope it does really well for whatever reasons that is. But like whatever the metrics are, and for the people in there, nothing but the best. Sounds like some dude got in 9 seconds. That must be tough. That's a tough hang right there. But yeah, don't care. Don't know why we're still doing this. An infinite number of problems. I loved everything Casey said on Tough Hang about it, the show just sucking, because of course it sucked. I didn't watch a second of it, and I could have told you it was going to suck because it is what it is. If it is your thing, don't let me dissuade you, man. Do what you want to do. If you get enjoyment from watching that, cool. But it is not for me and hasn't been for me. I think the last Tough I watched was the strawweight one, where we did we invented a belt and did championships, like made a championship of it, even though the best strawweight in the world was actually already fighting in the UFC and everyone knew so. That's the last Tough I watched and probably will ever watch.
So incomplete from Jed Mishu?
Casey thought it sucked, and I am predisposed to thinking it sucks. So I'm going to go with Casey and say D.
Oh, already trying to get brownie points with producer Casey in anticipation of a 5th round. I see how it is.
Well,
Jed.
I mean, AK hasn't been on the show in so long that Casey doesn't determine who wins. So I will say I watched it on Wednesday. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. But like AK said, it was just more of the same. But I will say it did enough for me to say to myself, Mike, we're going to give it one more episode and see if they can hook me. And I might be more on the Jed side of things, because I just haven't watched it in a while. How are they going to hook you?
How?
I don't know.
Explain to me what they're going to do that they haven't done the last 20 seasons. It's just the same show. And if you're into it, you're into it. And
you know what's a shame is this, again, for anyone who hasn't watched already, spoilers, I guess. It's been 2 days. You're on your own on this one. So we got a 8-9 second finish, 7 seconds maybe. We didn't get a full. They didn't give an official time. Somewhere in the 7 to 8 second range. Very exciting performance by Roosevelt Roberts. Lands just 2 great right hands, squares up Nate Jennerman, and that was it. Fight was over. This would have been a perfect opportunity for them to shuffle the format a little bit, because they know that, okay, so they know the first fight ends quickly. Why not put the fight in the middle of the episode? And then have the second half of the episode be dealing with the aftermath. We can learn a little bit more from Jennerman besides just getting to focus on how just being so friggin' sad. Again, you could give people more Conor. This is what people are here for. It's more Conor. Let's get more of Conor's perspective. Him consoling Jennerman. We saw a little bit of that. I bet there was more. We could have shown Jennerman in the gym with Conor the next day. I guess we might see that the next episode. And I understand, like I said, the format works as in they're trying to build towards the fight. They assume people are here to see shenanigans and also a fight. Like, you're almost building to the main event of the show, which is the fight itself. But when the fight's 7 or 8 or 9 seconds, how much are you getting out of that, really, of having people, stay on that long? I know a lot of people didn't. I saw a lot of people complaining about ads. There's just too many ads. I didn't watch it with ads, so I didn't have that problem. I saw a lot of people complaining about ads. They just got bored. They just wanted to tune out. The format is fine, but clearly it doesn't work for everybody. So maybe putting the fight in the middle, listen, that might be a crazy idea too. Maybe people are saying, well, they would just watch the fight in the middle and then tune out. That's entirely possible. But again, at this point, you're 31 seasons in. You have the results ahead of time. You can play around with the format so much. What if they had done like a Christopher Nolan Tarantino thing where they put the fight at the beginning and then showed how we got to that point? That might be the worst idea in history. I don't know. But this is coming from someone who's watched 31 seasons, 10 something episodes. He's literally over 300 episodes of The Ultimate Fighter. And that's not even counting the international seasons, which I've also watched. I would love to see them try something different. It's just not going to happen. And I think Jed knows that. Casey knows that. Mike, I think you know that too.
Or you just know the first fight's going to end in 8 seconds. Do 2 fights.
Yep.
What are we doing?
Yep.
Just do a second fight.
But they're so stuck to their format, though, because that would mean another episode probably have to not have a fight, right? Because there's 10 episodes, so it's arranged so that there's 8 quarter-final fights and then 2 semi-final fights. So I don't know. You're right. And it'd be cool if there was just an episode, again, focusing more on Conor doing stuff. Casey wants to see more of Conor coaching or more of Chandler coaching. And I'm like, yeah, why bring these personalities on? Because focus on that. There's your story. Conor's not there. How does the team deal with that? And instead, it's like you have these personalities. You have, like, I would love to know how much of Conor, like relevant Conor footage, was there even on that first episode. It's like a 45-minute episode without commercials. He was on camera talking or doing something for maybe 6 minutes. I might be generous. There was a great part where he had his team spar, and he's like, yeah, and then even Conor put on the gloves. You literally see him sparring for maybe half a second, 1.5 seconds, and it's like, oh, that was exciting. And I'm like, we want to see that. Show us Conor sparring with these guys. Didn't even use it. So I don't know what the point is of having these personalities if you're not going to feature them at all. It's frustrating.
What's the point of any of it, AK? And I don't mean that in this like nihilistic sense. Explain to me genuinely, what is the purpose of this show? It's not for prospect development. I mean, the Contender Series is a better vehicle for that. So it's not that. It's not really even star building. Who was the last star who got built off of tough? That used to be what it was for. It's not that. And it's maybe is to build up the fight between the two coaches at the end of it. Not this one. This tough season will have no influence on what Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is going to do at the box office. Who is this for other than ESPN, because they are paying for it? Like, it's just, you got to give me a reason to watch. And Conor and Michael Chandler having a clearly fabricated beef with each other and a bunch of dudes who aren't going to amount to shit in the UFC is not a thing that's going to make me watch. Like, it's half of them already washed out. And I know that like Timur Valiev is actually like not a bad fighter, but there's no hook. There's no, the guy of tomorrow, the next Kamaru Usman is not there. So like, what are we doing? Do something fun and not just be like, let's hope Conor lifts this boat. And it probably is. Like, Conor is probably enough of a draw to pull ratings and make this the most successful tough in some time. But like, when you can't lean on the Conor McGregor crutch, it's going to go back to being the same thing. It is the same thing. It's just going to go back to having the same regular ratings. So, like, I just don't know who we're doing this for.
You sound like you're not excited at the prospect of Brad Katona winning the Ultimate Fighter again and then getting himself a second Ultimate Fighter contract. That is offensive to me. Yeah, what is the purpose of this show anymore? Listen, it's a tough question. And as someone, like I said, who has doggedly
Good pun.
followed this show, yes, I've asked myself the same thing. Because yeah, like you said, does this show create stars anymore? Again, we're at the point we're doing this vets prospects thing where literally half the fighters on this show, on this season, are fighters who were essentially told, well, you couldn't cut it in the UFC. I don't know who the most experienced is. I want to say Roosevelt Roberts, who fought on episode 1. Everyone else, I think, maybe topped out at about 4 or 5 fights. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I know Roosevelt Roberts managed, I think, 6 or 7. I'm looking here. Oh, Jason Knight. I'm sorry. No, Jason Knight. Jason Knight was in the UFC for quite some time. That's about it. That's about it. And then, yeah, Roosevelt Roberts behind him. And everyone else kind of a smorgasbord of 4 or 5 fights. And again, these are good fighters. Talented. Hunter Azure, you mentioned Valiev. Again, Jason Knight, I just said. Roosevelt Roberts. I think Kurt Hollabaugh, the oldest guy on the show. I still think he has something to offer. But yes, but why make
how
them
much
go
does
through
he
this
have to
song and
offer,
dance
though,
on the show?
How much does he have to offer? That's the thing.
Well, the
this
question
is
is,
not meant
why
to be
even
disrespectful to Kurt Hollabaugh. If he comes out and
Yeah.
wins this show, he's never winning a title. Like, it's just do something. If you and the UFC is not catering this to me very obviously, and I recognize that. If you want me to care about this so we can talk about this stuff, Mike, it needs to be back to season 4, which I grant you was a horrible, horrible idea at the time, even though it did lead to one of the dopest moments in the sports history. Title shot for the winner. Bring in a new weight class. Let's do the atom weights. God forbid we maybe find 8 women to be like featherweights in the UFC, or shit, at this rate, even bantamweights. You have to give a reason or something, because other reality television shows evolve. Every season of Survivor, they do something new. They've been doing it for like 50 seasons at this point. There's always like, here's a new hook, here's a new gadget or gimmick or whatever. It's just like, hey, we're going to put in 16 to 8 to 2 groups of 8 of weight classes of guys who weren't good enough to negotiate their way into the UFC without doing this, and are willing to spend 8 weeks in a house like away from their families, instead of just being like, let me have a Contender Series fight, please. And this is what you're gonna get. This is crap. It's crap product, and it's never gonna get better until they try more.
The hilarious thing is even the prospects, like we were talking about, like, oh, like, what's Kurt Hollabaugh gonna do? Even some of the prospects, Carlos Vera's 35 years old, Rico DeShulo's 36 years old. And guys, if you're out there, listen, good for you for being in there and start, maybe you got a late start to your careers. And if you guys become UFC champions one day, you can shove this clip in my face. But
I will eat my hat.
Hilarious.
I will
if Rico DeShulo challenges
eat my hat
for a UFC title, you'll eat a hat.
Yes, on BTL. The whole episode can just be me eating a hat, because it's just not going to happen.
Rico or Carlos Vera, if you're out there, prove us wrong, because Jed, I can't even completely disagree with what you're saying. I still find some entertainment value. I don't want to say value as far as like, is this show going to generate contenders? That really isn't the purpose of it anymore. But one thing Casey did like about the show, which I also still enjoy, is I still get caught up in fighter stories. I listen, I know we've seen a million of them, and you see them. It's the same thing. We see them in the Contender Series. We see them talked about even on a preliminary fighter. You'll have a Brendan Fitzgerald. You'll have John Anik kind of filling you in about someone you might not have heard of. So, but when you get to get a nice closer look, we learned about Nate Jerniman's 3-legged dog. We learned about Roosevelt Roberts, just 2 adorable children, and him being willing to die in the cage despite the fact that he has 2 adorable children. It still works on that level. It still works as somewhat infotaining programming. I feel, but I'm not by any means going to say this is essential programming. That this is like that the show has not been replaced by the Contender Series. I still want to see the show stick around forever, but I completely agree. It cannot stay the way it is. It cannot stay the way it is. I don't know what changes they're going to make. I don't know what advances they can make. Because talent-wise, I mean, listen, they're just draining the pool every year with Contender Series, now Ultimate Fighter. Plus, again, regular sign, just a regular, signing periods. I don't know what they can do, but I just know tough never die. That's all I'll say.
I can give you 10 ideas that would at least make tough somewhat interesting, just off the top of my head. Like, it's not hard. They just aren't, it's not what they want to do. It is not who tough really speaks to my fundamental problem with the UFC. They cannot fail, and yet they play it safe at every possible turn in the most infuriating way possible. I was having this conversation over Memorial Day weekend about a person who will remain nameless with my best friend, and he's a trust fund baby. And like, I'm not here to blame him for that. He can't choose to whom he is born. Like, good for him that he won the game of life by making it out of out into the world. But he then just went off and became he's a guy, good guy, but just became like a banker. And that's fine. I'm but if I was born rich, I would spend my life pursuing something fulfilling in a way that's interesting, as opposed to what if I just keep trying to make more money? Because that seems maybe I'll try and be an actor or an artist or whatever. But instead, you have the safety net. The UFC cannot fuck up. They cannot fail. Nothing they do can crater the machine that they have, and they refuse to take even the smallest risk or have even the minimum amount of fun that can be had. And it's reflective in this program, a program that is actively derided, that nobody really cares about, and that they could do anything with. Dana could come out tomorrow and be like, season tough 32, we're taking a bunch of people who have never fought ever, who sign up to do it, and we're going to try and teach them. We're going to take 16 CM Punks and see if one of them can at least be like a baseline level competent fighter. Or season 33, we're bringing back competitions, only this time there's stakes. So before player A and player B fight each other on Wednesday or whatever, they're going to do a foot race in the desert, and whoever wins, they win the first round. They are up 1-0, and it's 2 rounds fight. Let's go. You could do things. They just don't give a shit. And that's why, it's frustrating. I didn't want to be mad about this, Mike. Look what we've done, man.
Will you be watching episode 2? Will you be watching episode 2?
The only time I will ever watch this show is if you physically make me, because I have to come on Tough Hang. It's the only time I'm going to watch this show.
I may be inviting you to come on soon.
I know we talked about it, and so if I have to come on, then yes, I will watch that episode. The rest of it, no.
Well, we tried, and maybe Jed will watch
an
episode.
Mike. He will.
He will. I would tune in immediately if Dana was like, this week the contestants are playing ping pong, and the winner, the loser, has to fight with one hand tied behind his back. But hell yeah. Because who gives a shit? This isn't to determine the future of fighting. It's to determine a dude who's going to win this show and probably be irrelevant in 3 years, if not sooner. So just
That's
do
generous.
Dumb shit with it and have fun.
I wish they did the play-in fights. I did like that. That would have been a great first
That
don't
episode was
have
at
enough
least
bodies
good.
anymore.
That
But they
episode
don't
was
have
always
bodies
at least
anymore.
good because it was just an episode of 12 fights or whatever. So you just tune in and watch that.
And get their reactions to it. I would have liked that, but I understand. Bodies, contender series, free agent signings, all that stuff. All right. I think we are toughed out here. The point for round 1 goes to I mean, Jed is a trier, but AK gets the point. It's 1-0. Well done, Jed.
I knew I was losing this one already, so we're good. I was prepared.
It was really good.
Having watched the show, I probably had a slight edge. Having actually watched the episode. So I'm a little unfair.
Honestly, before I knew you were going to be on, I had intended to just come on and be like, I didn't see it. I'm not going to watch it. I have nothing to say. I hope whoever's across from me can speak.
Well,
no notes.
You got to listen to Tough Hang, and at least you got something.
It helps.
So let's pivot on over to the PFL, gentlemen. They have been in the news for some good headlines with the Francis Ngannou signing, but boy, that did not last very long. As yesterday, we confirmed a report from MMA Mania. Last season's PFL light heavyweight champion, Rob Wilkinson, became the 10th fighter this season to be removed from the 2023 season for a positive drug test. And we haven't even begun the second half of the regular season yet. Jed, Sheesh, Wilkinson, Thiago Santos, Bruno Capoloza, and 7 other guys knocked out of the season for positive drug tests, coming on the heels of this Ngannou news. Not the good start the PFL was hoping for in 2023, was it?
No, tough. A tough hang for the PFL as well. Man, that's
really
come
catching
up all
on.
the time. Yeah, that's
Really
it's
catching on.
doing great. Great title, guys. Wait, well done. This sucks for the PFL because Rob Wilkinson's one of like 5 fighters that's actively interesting to watch compete for them. So, as a man who's about to go to a couple of PFL shows here in Atlanta over over this month, not excited about whoever they are going to be able to roll in there because like, it seems like half their roster is gone. They just backed up the money truck for Francis, who's not fighting until next year. The PFL is like the exact opposite of Bellator, which means I like them more because God, they're trying, but they cannot seem to figure it out. And it's not really their fault. I would say if on the PFL, just don't ever go to Vegas again. Make sure you go somewhere where they don't test for drugs or they're bad at it, or at least to where you talk to the fighters and be like, hey, this is just an IQ test. You just got to not be a total moron to get caught here. The Rob Wilkinson one, before Rob Wilkinson went down, I was like, well, it kind of sucks, but a lot of those names are not the most interesting fighters like Thiago Santos. I know that they invested in him, but he's Thiago Santos. But Rob Wilkinson is a champion going down as one of the most exciting guys in that organization going down is really unfortunate, particularly for me because I've said it many times and I'll continue to say it. Couldn't give a shit less about drugs in MMA. I would way rather be watching Rob Wilkinson fist fight somebody, in the next couple of weeks here, and now that's not going to happen. So tough all around.
AK, your reaction to Rob Wilkinson being the latest domino to fall on this list, may not even be the last one, but how bad is this early into the regular season?
Just sad. You mean halfway through, at the halfway mark of the 2023 season, Mike? Sad, man. Just sad. I saw the MMA fighting alert pop up. Our own Damon Martin covering it, and I was just like, this is a day off, so I wasn't there as the story was developing, so it just hit me full force. Rob Wilkinson ranked. He's a MMA fighting approved. I think he was his first time. I think he debuted in the most recent rankings, that number 15 spot. Fun fighter. Like, he's not just a guy who's winning fights in PFL. His fights are like actually intriguing. I look forward to these fights. And we were kind of thinking like, man, how high can he climb? Like, probably, because I mean, it's light heavyweight. Light heavyweight is not the youngest, deepest division right now. If he rattled off a few more knockouts, repeated as champion, I could see him like cracking the top 10. Now I don't know. I don't know if people are going to plan to drop him out entirely. And, of second most importance to him, I'm sure, than losing his MMA fighting global ranking, I'm missing on his shot at $1 million, which, hey, it's great he won it once. I'm sure winning it twice would have been better. It's such a bummer. And they tested for, I want to say he tested for clomiphene and the other names involved that we've heard of so far. I think it's like clomiphene and also drostalenone. I'm reading this off somewhere. Sorry, guys. Either way, bad stuff. I hate it for the PFL. I hate it for the league. I hate it for the fighters. I don't know what you can do. I mean, I'm kind of with Jed. I wish we just didn't test for these things at all. I wish we just let if you're the PFL, you just find a way to look the other way. But such a big part of the PFL brand is them saying, hey, listen, they're called the Professional Fighters League. So the last thing they can do is let anything like this slide, right? Go ahead, Jed. Go ahead. I just want to hear what you're
Professionals take drugs in literally every sport.
Hold on.
Every single sport in the world, they are gassed to the gills.
They're not supposed to. And if you're the professional fighters, you got to put the emphasis.
No, if you're a professional, you say drugs are bad while looking this way, like you did in Pride, because you're an adult. Who gives a shit?
Don't do drugs like our athletes. All right, see what they're doing. That's okay, but it's tough. It's a tough position.
Don't take vitamins either. You know what? Don't take vitamins. Vitamins are bad for you. Don't have surgery. That's unnatural. You can't put pins in your bones and shit. It's all
everything's
nonsense.
everything's
It's all
dangerous these days.
nonsense.
All right, everything's dangerous for the kids these days. But yeah, it really hurt me though to see the season hurt so much, to the point that I honestly I was doing up a PFL write up today and trying to remember like, oh, who's likely going to be in the playoffs, because they just announced sort of the date and location, San Antonio, for the first playoff event of the season. And I was trying to think, wait, who's still on it? Who's still eligible? Like, who's going to be there? And it was because it's the light heavyweights are on that card. I don't know. And so this is, if anything, the PFL benefit from two things. The Ngannou news, I think, still overshadowing a lot of this. And two, this is almost like a backhanded compliment. They're the PFL. And if this were the UFC and like 9 or 10 fighters suddenly got busted, it would be much more of a story. This is one situation where the PFL's relative anonymity relative to the UFC, that is, benefited them. Because I see people asking us, Mike, you've seen, I'm sure, is tagged in some of the on Twitter, like, why is this not a bigger story? And I'm like, we've been covering it. A lot of sites have been covering it. It's the people who determine whether it's a big story or not. And they're kind of just like shrugging and going like, well, there you go. That's PFL. That's any league that's not the UFC. And that's how they go about it. So again, it's probably good it's not a bigger story, but it also says a lot about how people view the organization.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask, AK. And this is just a tremendous segue, because as interesting as this topic is,
oh boy,
is there another thing that popped up on the old Twitter feed that we just have to discuss around 11:30 a.m. Eastern time? Because Don Davis of the PFL tweeted out a thank you to the fans for essentially making them the #2 MMA company worldwide based on 4 key elements, which I believe were like athlete quality, viewership, paid media distribution, premium video product.
It's the saddest thing I've ever seen.
And on top of that, Jed, I want to get your reaction to this. This graphic here with check marks and X's and all sorts of fun stuff. We have format and years in existence and total viewing audience, global media rights, pay-per-view fights, which, by the way, Bellator has had pay-per-view fights before, so you could probably pop an old green check mark on the old Bellator tag as well. There's just a whole bunch here, and apparently this graphic is supposed to make it clear as day, clear as a bell, that this is the #2 promotion with the bullet. So, Jed, this has been quite the topic on our Slack channels. I'll give you the floor. What did you make of this tweet? And more importantly, this graphic here going along with said tweet from Don Davis.
Look at all that green, though. Green is good. Look how much green there is. How can you guys like... Anyway, go ahead, Jed.
I need this graphic to stay up because we just got to post this.
Yeah, keep it up there, please. Yeah.
Look at how sad this is. This is the saddest shit I've ever seen. And I don't like, we were debating in the Slack, like, I don't know what is more depressing. This is very much a please. I'm stealing this from, I don't want to say his name in case he doesn't want the credit. I'm stealing this from a coworker of ours because he's spot on. This is very much my mommy said I'm the most handsome man in the room, like thing. Like, okay, look at who put this together. Here's what I need to know. And when they come, maybe I'll get to talk to Don Davis in a couple weeks and be like, hey man, somebody in your graphics department made this. And then they handed it at least to one person in front of them who was like, cool. And then you looked at it and were like, yes. So I'm assuming at least 3 sets of eyeballs looked at this and nobody asked. Nobody was like, this looks a little bit desperate, guys. Like, one, pay-per-view fights being a metric is very clearly a metric there to show that PFL is better than Bellator in one. Despite one, they've done one of them. 2, wasn't very successful. And 3, Bellator's done as many pay-per-view fights and they just gave him an X for no reason. International regional leagues is like some real reaching of what that means, why that matters in any respect. Also, Bellator kind of has something similar going on, at least the same.
They had a Europe series, did they not?
They have exactly the same thing going on with the PFL's regional leagues, but the ones that really kill me, that really, really gets me. I'm going to leave the glaring thing for you, AK, as we were talking about it off air. But the one that kills me is technology, because they're the only ones with technology. But in the tech one, they say smart cage. Granted, they're the only ones with the smart cage. I'm not here to say anything different. Data, odds, and AI scoring. Every one of those promotions has odds. Because the odds aren't done by the fucking promotion, so you can't put that there. Data UFC stats is a page for data. Like this is they don't have the punch speed in MPH, which is the dumbest shit in the world because no one knows what a 14-mile-an-hour punch means. It is so inconceivably dumb that they put this out there as like a look at me, this is a good thing. The goal they wanted to accomplish was just the top like 4 or 5 rows because hey, here's our format. We've only been in existence for 5 years as compared to the rest of these, even though it's also kind of bullshit because they are basically built to the bones of WSOF, but whatever. And then total viewership per event is number 2. Global media rights number 2. Those are the things they wanted to say. And then they put all this other stuff so they could feel like mommy's special boy. And instead they just look like the biggest nerds in the room.
AK, what did you make of this tweet and this graphic here?
Listen, the chat is already losing it over the top. What I'm going to bring up in a second. The technology thing is hilarious.
I left it for you, AK.
Thank you. I almost wish you hadn't because I'm really not sure how to address this. First of all, technology. How could you just put smart cage and lump it in with data and smart cage? They should have just put has a smart cage ? And then X, of course, X. Everyone they should have given themselves an extra check mark because I mean that's worth it. Everyone, of course, looking at the.
I would have respected that honestly.
I would have
had smart cage as a column thing as well.
And question mark. Do you have one? Yes, no, that's it. It's a very binary thing. Guess what? Only one promotion does. Fighter diversity, certainly something to tout. Good for them. UFC, 35 countries. We see right there. Yeah, drift me over there. Yeah, 35 countries. We see PFL, 25 countries. Bellator, 25 countries. How many countries won championships? I would think many based on one, but how many? 80% Asian. This is a unique way of presenting this information. You inside baseball shit. We talked a lot about this graphic in the Slack, and that like hit me right away, and I was just like, I don't know what to say about this. Okay, first of all, Asia is composed of, I don't know if people are aware. I like Don Davis. I'm sure he's aware of this. I'm sure whoever made this graphic is aware of this. Asia is made up of many countries. So I don't know, why does Asia not get like, there's a lot of countries in Asia. I'm not entirely sure why Asia doesn't get the individual country count. Like, I'm not saying that it's not, I'd have to look it up. I'm looking myself, but like,
probably because it's more than 35 countries.
It might be. We've got Thailand. We've got China in there. Japan. I mean, there's a lot of. I'm just looking at some of these. It was a little uncomfortable. It was a little uncomfortable when I just saw that. I am not accusing anyone of anything, by the way, like any sort of impropriety. But I wish they had just sort of thought about how they had framed 35 countries, 25 countries, 25 countries, 80% Asian. The problem is the context.
That's like day one shit. You just can't do that.
The problem is the context. Is clearly when you make a graphic like this, you're trying to show, oh, here is why we are better than other promotions, right? That's the basic checkmark thing, right? Checkmark is good, X is bad. Look at how many more X's there are in everyone else's columns. Look how many checkmarks there are in our column. Higher numbers are good, lower numbers are bad. Look at us, number 2 viewing audience. Number 2, global media rights. Look at Bellator, number 3 and number 4. Look at us, 25 countries. Look at 1, 80% Asian. That's not a good context to be presenting that in. It's not good. I am being so maybe overly understanding as far as what they were going for here. I get it. They were trying, they're just trying to say
what genuinely what were they trying to go for?
We are more diverse than Asia. But this would be like one saying, oh, your promotion is 40% European or like 40% American. It's like, why do it like that when you're only doing it for the one promotion? I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I don't want to. It is just a strange way of framing it. And I think if Don Davis were here or whoever made this graphic were here, they would, they would think twice about presenting in such a way. It is it's not a great look. It's not their best, not PFL's best moment.
Dude, I guarantee you, if you looked at fighter diversity in PFL, it would be like 60% European. If they got 25 countries, they're going to be pulling heavily from Germany and just all that group. Like, it's just an insane thing. Can we talk about the other thing that nobody mentioned in the Slack? And it doesn't jump off the page, but if you stare at this for as long as I've been staring at it now, it really, really comes to the forefront of my mind. And it's percentage of top 25 world ranked. Because first off, let's just start here. No disrespect to Fight Matrix. It's a nonsense thing and it's not real and you can't use it. We at MMA Fighting have global rankings. You notice they didn't put it up there because I think PFL has 2 fighters in it or whatever. So they don't want to be looking at the 0.03% of their top ranked fighters with that one. 2, here's how you know Fight Matrix is nonsense in general. If you didn't know it at all, what does the math add up to at the bottom of this? These are the 4 biggest promotions by a wide margin. 30% of the top 25 fighters in Fight Matrix aren't under the banner of one of these 4 promotions. That means it has to be bad. How? Is Rizin doing huge numbers?
This is the top 25. Top 25. Come on. There's ACA's promotions probably. KSW.
There's just, okay. So when you're telling me that all of the other promotions outside of these 4 combined have more collectively top 25 fighters than the UFC, I'm telling you that's a dog shit metric to be using as your quality of fighters or whatever. It's just nonsense. The whole thing is insane.
Let's graph. Let me get back to the positives. Again, I could talk about the 80%.
There are positives,
and I thank you. I like the thank you at the beginning of the tweet. That's good. Thank you to the fans. Okay, I'm going really right to the positives. Thanking the fans, always a good thing. Thank you fans for making us the number 2 MMA company worldwide in just 5 years.
What metrics?
This is a graphic right in front of you.
I know. I need to know who is total viewing audience by who. Is this Don Davis's polling system? Did he call his immediate family members and ask? Because I need to know who produced this info.
Yeah, if Campbell McLaren were here, he would be, I don't know, he would be firing shots probably at Don Davis in the PFL right now.
Campbell McLaren would be losing his mind, and Chachi would be like, "This is obviously ridiculous." That's what we need is the 3 of those men in a room arguing over who's second best, because nothing's better and more fulfilling than watching people argue about being almost as good as somebody else.
I'm so mad he didn't put Kombachi Global on here and didn't do fighter diversity, like 95% South American Kombachi Global. I would have been rolling on the floor laughing. Like, that would have just been so darkly hilarious, but probably a good thing that didn't happen. But the second thing I'll say is positive is he's promoting. He might be way out to lunch with some of these figures. I get this might be the exaggerate, when people make those graphs where it's like it's intentionally making it look way closer than it is. You're looking at the data, it's not even close. He might be fudging. He is. Why am I saying might be? He's fudging the data. He's fudging the data here a little bit. But at least he's promoting. We always get on Dana White about not promoting enough. He's not promoting any fighters. That's probably also a problem. He's promoting just the league itself and various metrics, but at least he's promoting. So my 2 positives are he said thank you and that he's doing his best to tell people his company's number 2. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But you got to admire the chutzpah and listen, if you can convince anyone, then it can't hurt, right? You got to convince people. You're selling something here.
In his slight defense, AK, he probably couldn't promote fighters for fear that they too will no longer compete because they failed drug tests. So, because apparently everyone's doing it in the PFL these days. Funny how the UFC hasn't had any, fighter of means and ability fail a drug test in a while. You think every top level fighter in the UFC is just living clean, huh? Anyway.
Well, that was a hell of a graphic, and thank you, Don Davis, for giving us something to talk about on the show.
It did bring joy to my life today. I will say that.
Go PFL. PFL. When's the PFL coming back?
Next week, right?
PFL next week. Tune in. Second half of the season.
Yeah, next Thursday, the Overtime Elite Arena in Atlanta,
Jed
Georgia.
will be there. Jed
will be there.
I will. And just to tie this all with the bow here, if we didn't have this drug nonsense, Rob Wilkinson would have been fighting Will Fleury. Not happening because both dudes failed drug tests. So we shouldn't have tested anyway because it all would have been the same.
Well, that was PFL's week. Let's head to a different promotion and talk about their week. Point for round 2 goes to... It would go to Don Davis, but he's not here. So Jed Meshew gets the point. It's 1-1. As we head to the world of Bellator MMA. Yes. Let's head to Bellator because they have been in the news as well. They did not need to create a graphic to do so. We'll discuss this first. They're bringing in a new division, a new men's flyweight division, and they will crown the first Bellator men's flyweight champion later on this summer. We'll get into when and how in just a moment, but AK, a Bellator flyweight division. About time, eh?
Ray Borg died for this. Let me put it this way. Ray Borg died for this. He was the only reason I think they booked that Horiguchi Ray Borg that ill-fated would be putting it nicely doomed Kyoji Horiguchi Ray Borg fight in Hawaii was I assume that was meant to kickstart their plans to have a flyweight division. Now what they should have done is what they're actually doing with this fight. We have Kyoji against Makoto Shinryu, and it's for a vacant flyweight title. That's what they should have done for the Ray Borg fight. I mean, listen, if they were going to make Ray Borg fight at flyweight, really, it should just never have been booked at 125 pounds in the first place. But at least let people know, like, oh, this is, we're doing flyweight now. I still don't understand why, because the announcement that they're going to do it happened so shortly after. Like, I don't understand, like, why couldn't they have made it that fight? Why couldn't they have announced it a few months earlier and say we're starting a flyweight division with Ray Borg and Kyoji? I mean, people would have laughed because they knew Ray Borg wasn't going to make it. But anyway, I'm going in circles now. You know what I'm saying. But yes, I love this. Long overdue. They've had a very solid women's flyweight division for a long time. Men's flyweights have been killing it in the UFC. Shout out flyweight unders, of course, always delivering. And there was really no great reason for Bellator not to promote it. I understand not wanting to. Listen, you're comfortable with the divisions you have. You don't want to promote too many divisions, but flyweight there's so many good athletes in it. So many good athletes fighting in other promotions that you can sign. It was a real mystery to me why they didn't do it, but better late than never, I suppose. Great placement on it. Saitama, Japan, perfect. Again, I complained about the Borg fight, whatever, not being for it. How much better is that you have two Japanese fighters going for it in Saitama Super Arena? So yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited. There's a lot of guys they can bring in. I was just off the top of my head, I feel like I'd love to see John Dodson in there. Love to see John Dodson get a shot in Bellator. I don't think him and Kyoji have fought, unless I'm crazy. I know he's wanted that fight, so there you go. So John Dodson's out there, a lot of good names. This is just a great thing for Bellator, and yeah, I have nothing. I don't know. I have nothing critical to say about it. This is just me being a fan and saying it's about time.
Jed, your response? New division, Bellator doing things here. 125.
A little less up about it than other people are. I mean, I think it's reasonable. A lot of the top flyweight talent in the world is currently under contract other places, so I'll be interested to see how they navigate that. But you have Kyoji, and that's kind of the main selling point here is Kyoji is one of the best flyweights in the world and some level of a star, certainly somebody that hardcore fans love. So you want to give him a belt and a place to make K. That totally tracks and works for me. I think, honestly, the biggest plus to this might be that the UFC is going to have to invest more heavily in their flyweight division. We've seen them take some steps forward after trying to kill the division. But if Bellator starts moving, they may get a little competitive and start really trying to go to the well, sign some of the ACA guys who, ACA has a flyweight division that has largely been the best non-UFC flyweight division. So, but ultimately, I don't know. I would have preferred to see them maybe do an atomweight division or a women's strawweight division. But if they're trying to open up the books, but totally fine. More, they'll deliver more fights that are probably of high quality, because you can generally at least expect that from Bellator. They are a professional fight organization. They are going to give you at least a bare level of quality, even if their ceiling often is not as high as you would hope it to be.
And the new champion will be crowned July 31st, Bellator versus Rizin 2. And we'll have the final opening round lightweight Grand Prix fight on that card. The main event, AJ McKee versus Patricky Pitbull. Jed, I love the concept the first time around on New Year's Eve. I woke up early. I watched it. I enjoyed it. They're going back to the well again 7 months later. Do you like them going back to this well 7 months after the fact? What are your thoughts on Bellator versus Rizin, the sequel?
I don't hate them going back to the well because it is cool. I have some questions. I do feel like maybe if this is a biannual thing, it's okay. But it feels like it should just be like a Super Bowl type event. I mean, I've pitched that forever, that like what the PFL and Bellator should do is just make a Super Bowl of MMA once a year, where the PFL, the champions for the PFL from the previous season, face off with some of the Bellator guys, champions or not, and just super fights that are fun and interesting and, et cetera. So I like them doing this with Rizin. I'm never going to knock co-promotion because it's better than not. I do wonder how many times they can do this a year before it just starts to feeling like, yeah, they're just one unified promotion, where when this loses the specialness, will I still care as much? I don't know. And I also am wondering why AJ McKee Pitbull's the main event. I'm not wondering, totally know why, but you're crowning a champion. You should just crown the champion in the main event. Let Kyoji have his shine. But I know what to expect here.
AK, your thoughts on Bellator versus Rizin 2? As a man who loves series and many, many sequels to iconic things, Fast and the Furious being one of them. Bellator Rizin 2. Where are we at here?
Don't get me started, Mike. Yeah, listen. I say bring it on. Bring it on. It'd be cool if you could develop a Bellator and Rizin supercard every year, like just once a year, making this big annual event. Both promotions certainly have the talent for it. But I also think when you're Bellator, I don't know if you can always bank on that kind of timing working out for you. That is something that when you're I was going to say number three promotion, shout out to Don Davis, in all of them. Or do you say they're number three, number four, or them in one tied? When you're tied for third,
it depended on the metrics you were looking at.
Depending on the metrics, yeah. When you are battling for the bronze medal in the MMA promotional world, you don't always have the option of trying to like mark down specific time. We saw it with Hawaii. We saw it. Scott Coker was like, "Listen, we'd love to come to Hawaii more often, but just the way things are, the timing doesn't always work out. There's arena renovations that we usually go to, things like that. So you kind of have to go with what you're given. So if the opportunity comes to do another Bellator versus Rizin, let's say, in fourth quarter of this year, like October, November, December, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. You really can't. You really can't. Hold back. So I still want to see what else pops up on this card. I think it's only 3 fights so far that are official, I believe. Unless I have Miki,
yes.
Miki Pitbull, Kyoji, Makoto, and Kana Watanabe and Vita Arteaga. So yeah, well, let's see how much they load this up before wondering like, ooh, what are they going to do if they have to come back here in 4 months, 4 months, 5 months? Because right now, like I said, they can't worry about that. Unload the clip. Just give us as many of these crossover things as possible. And if it comes to the point where people just start saying, well, it's Bellator / Rizin, they're just one promotion, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually think that's kind of cool. It certainly won't. I don't think it's a partnership that would be like by any means official or super long term. But I think there's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with fans like enjoying that idea. Kind of like, oh yeah, like we want to see other promotions team up. Like why can't we get PFL 1, PFL Bellator, like more cross promotion in general? So I'm not worried about brand murkiness. Bring them on. More versus events, please.
Are we going to get Rizin rules for these Bellator versus Bellator fights? Can AJ McKee and Patricky Pitbull like foot stomp? Could we do some soccer kicks in those fights? That's the question I have. That's the question I have. But Yeah, I was looking
bet
at the
not.
release. I didn't see anything. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. So we'll
The
see
you
what else
can't
rounds
really
out the
do
start.
that
Yeah.
since it's a tournament fight. Like, if the rest of the tournaments were also held in Saitama, then
Oh,
yeah, but you can't really let those two dudes in the lightweight tournament fight under a different rule set.
that's a
I
good
mean,
You
you
point.
think this?
could if you're cool, but like that's not what anyone's gonna do.
You think this will be a cage and not a ring because of the same thing?
I actually didn't think about that. It should be, but probably not. They probably will do it in a ring,
Well,
which seems dumb.
we'll see how it all
I
plays
also
out.
think it
July
does not
31st.
matter. AJ McKee's gonna wreck him, so you can put this thing in any location setting you choose. Pitbull's getting smoked.
How disastrous would Pitbull like flash KOing AJB for this
No,
tournament and for this promotion?
it'd be fine because his name's Pitbull, and a lot of people might just think that it's the Pitbull who already beat AJ McKee.
It's Patricio.
They won't realize it's
oh,
the
Patricio
bad
beat him
one.
again. It's the
I'm like,
bad-
he won the trilogy. No, it's actually the shitty one. Oh, well,
I'm
that's
just saying,
unfortunate.
there is
Patricio
like a
could be the
possibility-
bantamweight champion by the time this event happens.
He
He's
could
fighting
be.
Sergio Pettis. I actually talked to Patricio yesterday. He said he might actually go down to 125 and try to win that belt too.
Okay.
And he's serious.
Good.
Like, he's not
And he
messing
should.
Honestly,
Honestly,
wants to go for 4 titles.
Sure.
it-
I remember when
him
Darren
and
Till was
Shoji-
going to win 3 belts. Okay.
I do want to say that we are 2 upsets away from getting Usman Nurmagomedov and Patricky Pitbull 2 in the finals of the Bellator Lightweight World Grand Prix tournament. Unfinished business, Jed. Unfinished business, guys. This rematch could happen.
Business was not finished, but man, we don't need it. We could be better without it.
You shouldn't have left me alive, Usman. You shouldn't have left me alive.
Look, that
Well-
would be an incredible comeback if Patricky beats AJ, wins this tournament, and beats like that would be legitimately cool.
Maybe that will happen, but we'll find out July 31st if Patricky can take that next step. Let's head to the hallowed apex, gentlemen. Point for round 3 goes to the Prince of Positivity. It's 2-1. Yes, let's go to the Apex. Jed yawned as soon as I said UFC Apex, and that kind of tells the whole
Why would I do
story.
that?
So we have UFC Vegas 74 main event, which I'm sure, Jed, you're pretty excited about. We have flyweights. So flyweight under bets are probably in. Kai Kara France looking to bounce back from his loss to Brandon Moreno, taking on the surging Amir Albazi. Should be a fun fight. We were supposed to apparently get Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon, but there's reports surfacing. We haven't fully confirmed it yet that Jared Gordon is out of that fight, and Jim Miller apparently still going to fight on the card against a fighter that is going to be announced shortly. That's what I'm seeing. We haven't officially confirmed this, but this is what is making the rounds right now. Obviously, that was a fight that people were kind of excited about. Alex Caceres, Daniel Pineda. This isn't a bad card, Jed, is it? Like, if we're sitting down and watching fights on a Saturday night, I think we'll enjoy what we watch, right? It seems like one of those cards.
It's fine. It has a couple things going for it. First, we did just have an off week, so that always makes any fight a little bit more palatable. Main event should be really, really fun. That's a very good matchup. 2 guys with stakes. It's a good main event. I know that it's not going to captivate some of the casual audience, and that's fine too. But it's historic. It's our first non-title flyweight main event since 2017. If you listen to No Bets Barred this week, I had a whole list of things that have happened since the last time men's flyweights headlined a card that wasn't in a title fight. And it was ridiculous because 6 years ago, a whole lot, like there are first graders out there now who were not born the last time this happened, rarer than a blue moon. So, and the other fights are fine. A lot of low, like nothing that's really jumping off the page, like super elevated, super exciting, but mostly good matchups. Some fights that look like they're going to be interesting. Couple of other fights that may be tough hangs, but if this were 10 fights instead of 13, this would be a totally fine card. Instead, it's 13, so it's still a little bit longer than you need to be, still asking a bit more of your time than this product should demand. But you got nothing else to do on Saturday. It's a good way to get the juices flowing for next weekend.
9 p.m. main card as well. AK, I mean, if you want to give a gymnastics score, go right ahead.
I'll save it for the preview show tomorrow. I really don't have one
Well
right
done.
now, if I'm being honest. Plug. I'm really, honestly, a bit rattled by the Jared Gordon news. It's good to hear. Doesn't sound like we've lost the fight. Again, we haven't even confirmed that it's off yet, but I'm
No,
keeping
we
my
could
eye
lose the
on.
fight. It'd be great if we
No.
lost the fight.
No, because we almost had, it's probably happened before, Jim Miller and Arlovski both competing, and Jim Miller, this is UFC appearance, if he does could still fight on Saturday, UFC appearance 42 and number 40 for Jed Meshu's greatest heavyweight of all time, Andrei Arlovski. That's crazy. And that's worth tuning in for hardcore. That's not something you're selling to the casual audience. Like, I just love to see an ESPN commercial going like, guess what? We got two of the oldest fighters in UFC history competing, 82 combined pro fights. You don't know who these guys are that they're fighting, but you got to tune in. Not the sexiest sell. But again, like I said, if you're someone who's been invested in the sport for some amount of time, you may be cherishing your moments with these elder statesmen of MMA. So I hope it's true that Jim Miller is still fighting, whether it's against Jared Gordon or they find a replacement opponent, because it's cool. 42 fights for him, 40 fights for Arlovski. This may never happen again. We may never see these guys in the same card again. So that's neat. Outside of that, Mike, as you mentioned, the card quality it's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. I think they got the right mix of competitive fights and also fights that are likely to end in finishes. Jed, I did not listen to you. No Bets Barred is out there already, right?
It sure is.
Okay, I did not listen to the episode yet. I assume I'm guessing main event, easy flyweight under. I'm not sure what you guys said about Tim Elliott and Victor Altamirano, but either way, flyweight fights are the bomb. As we just said, Bellator finally figuring that out. So we got two of those. And then Jay Malarkey's on the undercard. He's a lot of fun. John Castaneda. There's some newcomers. I mean, we had a lot of fighters having to step in as replacements. But yeah, some of the cards be a tough hang. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a 13 fight card right now. Some of these on paper look like they're guaranteed to go to sort of an uneventful decision, but that's okay. That's not, like I said, not every card has to be a banger. I think this is a little bit better than some people might be giving it credit for, but at the same time, I'm not saying it's appointment viewing either.
Okay, more on this card tomorrow on the preview show. Jed?
Andrei Arlovski debuted in 2000. When he debuted in the UFC, it had 3 weight classes. God love Jim Miller and what he's accomplished most fights in UFC history. It is substantially more impressive what Andrei Arlovski has accomplished, especially when you consider that he took a big gap of not even being in the UFC, and he's still like 3rd on the all-time fighting list. What an unbelievable career. And this fight is going to be terrible, but I will respect for the Pitbull.
Heavyweight over?
Oh.
Andrei Arlovski is the patron saint of heavyweight overs.
What is it? What
7. His last 10 fights, he's gone to decision 7 times. All 7 of those he won. The 3 losses he got finished, and it was usually pretty early. And that's what you want. If you're going to lose the bet, you want to lose the bet immediately. And if this gets into round 2, Andrei Arlovski's going to do some Arlovski things, and we're going to make it a full 15 minutes. Love Andrei. I love everything about Andrei Arlovski.
We didn't even talk about his various hairstyles. That's got to be on DraftKings. That's got to be what for a heavyweight over minus 3,000.
No, it's minus 155. Andrei Arlovski really is number 2 all time in fights. Oh, if Jim Miller pulls out, he's one back on Jim Miller at a very different weight class and in a very different manner. This man is never going to get the respect that everyone needs to give him.
Hold on, we're bearing this here. Again, I'm sure people who listen to No Bets Barred already heard this. Wait, I'm sorry. Over on this is only minus 155?
Yeah, over 2.5 is minus 155. I'm like fairly certain.
AK.
Let me confirm.
Hold on, let me check my. Hold on, guys. I gotta go do something real quick. 1 sec. I gotta.
I hear many clicks.
Let me confirm that. I actually may be confusing that. Let me. Okay. But yeah, it's a smash over.
If it is, I'm gonna say, listen. I tell people, don't gamble on MMA. Never gamble on MMA. But if you do,
Sorry,
that heavyweight over.
It's minus 195 now.
That's still
It's moved a little bit.
That's still not high enough.
I don't know.
That's not high
Dontel
enough.
Mays is young. He's never gonna yeah, I agree. Heavyweight overs are the best.
That's
AK.
crazy. What's Dontel Mays' finishing rate? Not like
50% in the UFC, I think.
All right. Okay, sure. All right, fine. Don't get me.
Will AK piggyback on the most electric bet in MMA? Find out this weekend during our UFC
Andre
Vegas
Arlovski
74
made his
coverage.
UFC debut when Randy Couture won the heavyweight championship for the second time. This dude has been around for a lifetime.
Literally,
just like
you're not even kidding.
Just
20 something years. People have been
23
It's sad. It's
years in the promotion.
It's sad to put it in this perspective, but there are people who have been born after Andre Arlovski entered the UFC and have died before we see his last fight. So I'm sorry to put it that way.
That's so somber.
Got old enough to take a drink or do something
there
else.
You go.
And then
yes.
Raul Rosas Jr. was like -5 when Andre Arlovski.
He was a concept in the eye of the universe when Andre Arlovski debuted.
Oh man!
I hope Arlovski never retires. I really hope he
never
keeps coming out here and doing this forever. It will be the best.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to talk more about these types of cards in a moment, but the point for round 4 goes to Jed Bashu, because he isn't dropping somberness upon us like AK just did, talking about Andre Arlovski's UFC debut. That means we're going to go to the knockout round. Shocking development as always. We will ask one question of both of these gentlemen. It'll be the same kind of a question. They will each have 60 seconds to respond. And then you peeps will cast your votes, which I believe we could probably do right now. We'll bring Casey in. He will announce the winner, so forth and so on. So Jed, what are we going to do here? You won 2 weeks ago. Are we going first or are we passing this on over to AK?
I'm tired of doing this. Let's go first so I can be done.
All right. Okay. So
I'm ready to go.
You may have seen this, Jed, but we usually don't hear from the matchmakers of the Ultimate Fighting Championship all that often. We never heard from Joe Silva, Sean Shelby. We never hear from, but once in a while we hear from UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard, who over the weekend sent out an out of nowhere tweet calling out Bloody Elbow and some of the media in general for chastising event quality. The tweet read, quote, "Bet you Bloody Elbow complained about the UFC card this weekend," and then followed up with, "I have no idea why I am doing this, but which card did you actually think was bad? These athletes have been amazing." People responded. He responded to some of those, but there's one response that really caught people's eyes. Someone was saying, "Don't fall into the trolls. Thank you for doing all this and putting all these cards together." And his response was, quote, "It's an honest question. I actually do remember the last bad fight card, and it's been many years ago. I feel the more cards we have, the more opportunity. The negativity is odd to me." So, Jed, in 60 seconds, verbally respond to Mr. Maynard's thoughts and opinions on this, because it has been a topic of conversation over the last several days. 1 minute on the clock. Have at it.
This is the type of shit that you do when you're so far ahead in the race that you have talked yourself into thinking you're behind. This is the shit that we see a lot of, like, oh, I too am pressed, but like, no. Mick Maynard, you know that this is not real. Like, you are a professional who knows what you are doing, and every time you put Dana White Contender Series tag next to somebody on a fight card, you know what you're getting and what you're delivering. There have been 18 fights this year, 18 UFC events this year, including this one up this weekend. There are like 5 that were like had to be watched. You do it all the time, and we talk all the reasons. Like, you just don't have to say this. You could just continue to be quiet, but don't try and pick a fight about something that everybody has the receipts on, and the only people who will be like, oh, you're right, are the most bootlicking sycophants that have ever walked the face of the earth. Like, it's unnecessary.
All right. I'm very intrigued after hearing that, as we hear from the Prince of Positivity himself. You've probably seen these tweets. Talked about it a little bit on Heck of a Morning because it was asked about. I just read them back to you. Now, And you've heard Jed's response. So now let's hear the Prince of Positivity's response. 1 minute on the clock for you, my best friend, and go.
I'm going to give you positivity. I'm not saying I agreed with Mick Maynard. I in general, people with the stance of, yo, you can't criticize any card. That's absurd. That's absurd. Some cards on paper are stronger than others. Some are clearly stronger than others. But as I said with Don Davis, Mick Maynard is doing his job. He's protecting the UFC. He's protecting his own reputation as one of the UFC's well-known matchmakers, him and Sean Shelby. He's protecting his own psyche a little bit too. I say this as someone who moderates the comments on MMAfighting.com regularly. I read probably 90% of the comments. I know I shouldn't. But there does come a time when you want to defend yourself, when you want to interact. And the good thing for Mick Maynard is he's not interacting. He's not wading into a Shark Tank. He's, for the most part, knowing that he's going to get a decent amount of feedback from, as Jed mentioned, the sycophants. So just for his own mental health and well-being and confidence, he probably felt like, I need to step out there and I want to hear back from the people, not from the media, from the people who love our product all the time. And I think he's probably happy with the results.
All right. Thank you, AK. Thank you, Jed. Jed, do you have something else you want to add?
I desperately need the vote. I don't want to sway the votes. I desperately need to keep talking on this subject after the votes are in, though.
All right, well, let's keep talking. Go. We need to waste time anyways, so keep talking.
I really want to know what he thinks the last bad card is. While AK was doing, I was trying to go back and using the years as the qualifier. And like, I think that even the most bootlicking son of a gun that's out there has to acknowledge that UFC Vegas 65, the Kennedy Nzechukwu Ion Kutalaba fight card in November, they have to acknowledge that was objectively bad. And that was 6 months ago. Like you have to. Looking at it right now, 11 fights, the first 7 went to decision. 2 of them splitties, 6 of the first 7 went to decision, and the main event was Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Ion Kutalaba.
Oh,
this is you can't pretend that's the co-main event was Walter Cortez and Costa Chase Sherman.
The problem
can't pretend
is
that's good.
The problem is he can play it both ways. One, on paper, it was supposed to have a different main event, right? It was supposed to be Lewis and Spivak, and then he can say results-wise,
it was still bad.
I know, but they'll with every card, they're always going to have highlights they can point to because Jack Della Maddalena was on there, right? How can it be a bad card? Jack Della Maddalena, starts somebody. We had a spinning wheel kick, right? Andre Fialho was on there getting knocked out. That's always fun. And then, of course, the ultimate defense, well, we got a finish in the main event. Oh, people criticize the main event, but there was a finish. That means the main event was automatically good. This is what they can throw out there to defend things. And I'm not saying I agree, but this is how.
You're probably right,
if you ask Mick Maynard, if you ask him about that event specifically, I bet you he goes no, that wasn't one of the bad ones. What do you mean?
You're probably right because his answer probably is, what was the last event where there were no finishes? And
right.
That's probably because it doesn't matter if they have a 15 fight card with 14 decisions. If one dude does one cool thing, well, these athletes, they're just out there competing. Sweet.
Yeah.
So are dudes at my pickleball court down the street. I'm not here to watch that shit in primetime television.
I was gonna go home Viera, and I'm like, oh, that was a few years ago, right? That was just May of last year. That wasn't even that long ago. And that card,
dude,
unless I'm forgetting something, definitely was not. I mean, listen, you know what? No, again, he could just say that fight had Johnson Almeida, Parker Porter on it. So there you go.
Well, that's one of the best.
You know what? Can't be. I should have brought it up.
10 of the 18 fight cards this year have been bad. And it's just I say this quote all the time, and it's I'm going to paraphrase it for this thing, but it's look, if you think that everybody else is an asshole, you're probably the asshole. If you're here to defend, you are clearly hearing the pushback that you are producing a bad product now. And is the reality everybody else is wrong and my product that is tangibly different than what it used to be is still great, or I'm I'm doing a bad thing, but I'm doing it for the money. Like, what is the more reasonable one? And that's why you could just shut the fuck up. You don't have to come out and say, we wouldn't be talking about you. You wouldn't be getting dunked to the center of the earth by everybody with a brain cell on the Twitter if you just hadn't done it. You can just not say anything.
Can I plug something actually for you, Jed? I know we got to get to I'm sure we got to get to the score, the results soon, but I'm someone again who hasn't had the biggest problem with there being 44 whatever plus events a year, because I always thought that MMA would become some sort of weekly event type thing. I never thought like maybe this many events, because I thought there'd be some sort of off season. Silly me, why would they do that? So I'm glad there's a lot of events, but listening to the BJ Penn Damn. So for anyone who hasn't listened to Damn They Were Good, the BJ Penn episode, boy, it reminded me of when there was a magic to these UFC events. Maybe more so than any other Damn you guys have done, because I think he's right in that era. I don't know if he's the only guy, but he's right in that era of guys that rise of the UFC that you've done a Damn They Were Good on. And it really was something special when a BJ was fighting or a George St. Pierre was fighting. And not just that fight itself, but like, oh crap, like that anticipation that anything can happen, which you don't really get with the 7-hour 15 fight card these days. It's just I mean, you just can't. How can you possibly have that same level of anticipation? You have so much of the product now. So I will just tell people, listen to that if you want to look back on the good times, or if you were never aware of those good times, and to understand why we might be so critical these days.
Shots.
Thank you, Casey. Great production as always.
I stuck to it.
You hit the post like an absolute savage. Casey, come on in. I'm sure the voting has been swayed enough at this point. So who wins? So we can carry on about our day.
Shocking results today. Shocking results.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Your winner today with 57% of the votes is AK Lee!
Wow!
Thank you, Ultimate Fighter. Hey, you know what? He did
it, baby! He did it!
It's all the Ultimate Fighter. It's all Don Davis. Shout out to 80% Asians out there. Shout out to 80% Asians. You guys did it. This might be, I don't know, it might be 80% Asians in the chat. Maybe that's why. But this is I am excited. I'm very happy. It's been a great week. Celtics about to win the Scottish Cup this Saturday. I'm super excited for that. It's just a good time overall. Thank you, everyone. Thank you who voted for me. Did you change it? Oh no, wrong side. Did you change it already?
Changed.
I think you did.
It changed.
Yes. 8 and 15.
What a moment. Jed, any last thoughts?
Look, I'm sorry all the voters are Philistines who don't know, like, they're eating McDonald's every weekend 42 weeks a year. Sometimes it's fun to have steak, guys. Sorry. We used to only get steak. We'd only get it 12 times a year, but it was dope. Now we just get trash. That's where we're at.
Well, there you go. Final thoughts from Jed Mishu. Casey, you can hit the music so we can get on out of here. We'll be back next week to recap UFC Vegas 74. We'll get you ready for the return of the PFL, the world's prominent #2 promotion in the sport of mixed martial arts. The graphic tells all. And we'll get you ready for UFC 289, which is going down next Saturday in Vancouver, Canada. Amanda Nunes, Irene Aldana, the main event. But until then, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow for the preview show. For AK, for Jed, Casey on the ones and twos, I am Mike Heck. Back next week. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
This has been Between the Links,
Fighter diversity.
an MMA fighting production on the Vox Media Network.